Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something incredibly important: the United Nations totally redesigned framework for preventing sexual exploitation and abuse, or PSEA. Now, based on some really specific, direct feedback from the New York team, this whole framework just went through a massive overhaul. It demands a highly authoritative, measured, and absolutely uncompromising approach to institutional safety. So let's just get right into it. The New York team hit the nail on the head here. We are completely scrapping the old model of informal, low-stakes awareness training. That's out. Instead, we're looking at a strict mandate for high-stakes operational executive accountability. Basically, PSEA is no longer just some casual communications exercise or, an afterthought you tack onto the end of a meeting. It is a rigid, non-negotiable operational control, and it absolutely must be in place before a crisis hits. To keep things moving and mirror that institutional rigor, we've broken today's explainer down into 6 key parts. 1, a high-stakes redesign. 2, 3 tracks of accountability. 3, leadership and advocacy. 4, building PSEA systems. 5, managing allegations safely. And 6, funding and sustaining PSEA. Okay, starting right off with Section 1, a high-stakes redesign. The absolute golden rule here, right from the jump, is that operational urgency, literally no matter how fast a crisis is exploding on the ground, can never, ever override PSEA standards. Every single PSEA module has to be governed by these 5 exact steps. First up, you acknowledge the operational trigger. Second, explicitly define why it matters so you can map out the executive risk. Third, get crystal clear on distinct responsibilities. Fourth, trigger the required actions and controls. And fifth, close the loop with actual resources and a clear call to action. You cannot skip these steps. No shortcuts. Moving right along to Section 2, the 3 tracks of accountability. When a crisis hits, we need to know exactly who holds the power and who holds the responsibility. So we've got 3 distinct audience tracks to keep things crystal clear. Track A, that's senior leadership. They own the strategic risk, the big picture coordination, and the resources. Track B is for your PSEA focal points. They're the ones driving technical compliance, managing referral pathways, and handling documentation. And Track C is for the project managers handling the practical, on-the-ground implementation and community-facing controls. We have to keep these lanes totally separate. Detailed focal point procedures just don't belong in a high-level senior leaders briefing, and vice versa. Now, the key takeaway here is that you can't just toss responsibility into a vague bucket labeled leadership. Even at the very top, the duties are razor sharp. The resident coordinator, the RC, leads the overall UN country team posture. Then you have the humanitarian coordinator, the HC, who actually integrates SEA risk right into the operational response planning. And finally, the head of mission, the HOM, who is responsible for maintaining absolute mission discipline and pushing prompt reviews. Everyone has a specific target on their back when it comes to accountability. Let's roll into Section 3, leadership and advocacies. Here's the thing. Executive accountability has to be fully functional way before any harm actually happens. Just picture this for a second. An operation scales up way faster than its safeguards during a rapid emergency displacement. Imagine you're suddenly dealing with a massive influx of displaced families. The number of people needing life-saving aid doubles overnight, and agencies are just scrambling, recruiting temporary staff at breakneck speed. The power imbalances in a situation like that are just staggering, and the operational risk, it goes straight through the roof. In those absolute pressure cooker moments, leadership cannot treat PSEA as just a secondary topic to be vaguely aware of. I actually want to read this executive script directly from the source material because it totally reframes the entire goal. Listen to this. The standard is not that no allegations are heard. The standard is that the system is safe enough for concerns to surface and strong enough to respond. Wow, think about that. PSEA has to be front and center in every single executive decision about who you recruit, who you partner with, and how you provide assistance. All right, on to Section 4, building PSEA systems. Leadership commitment is absolutely crucial, for sure, but we actually need physical, documented systems to back up those mandates. Ask yourself, what happens if a massive multi-agency cash and shelter program expands across several sites, but the entire PSEA function rests on the shoulders of just one unsupported part-time focal point who already has a dozen other competing duties? Relying on informal, part-time goodwill in environments this high stakes, that's not just risky, it's a systemic governance failure. So, how do we build a system that actually holds up? Well, it takes concrete action. We have to establish formal PSEA networks. We need to run scenario-based pathway checks. And by that, I mean literally testing your reporting channels before the emergency even hits to make sure they work. You have to put real resources behind the function. We need to professionalize these roles with actual terms of reference and continuously review the risks. The system has to be documented and tough enough to survive staff turnover and sudden, urgent scale-ups. Let's shift gears to Section 5, Managing Allegations Safely. How an institution handles a real-world allegation is the ultimate stress test of this whole architecture. Imagine this absolutely gut-wrenching dilemma. What if an allegation involves a staff member who is directly connected to an essential, life-saving service? If you shut the service down, you could literally harm innocent people who rely on it. But if you keep it running without controls, you're exposing others to abuse. Meanwhile, the complainant is terrified of retaliation and rumors are starting to spread like wildfire. How in the world do you mitigate that risk, protect confidentiality, and keep life-saving aid flowing, all without interfering in an independent investigation? Well, the answer comes straight from this incredibly powerful leadership statement in the redesign. It says, "An allegation is not a public relations problem. It is a protection, accountability, and trust crisis." That hits hard, right? Your absolute first duty is safe, confidential victim support, not the institution's reputation. You lock down confidentiality, immediately refer the case to the proper channels, and reduce operational exposure, all without trying to play detective and doing your own amateur investigation. And finally, Section 6, Funding and Sustaining PSEA. Because let's be real, without dedicated funding, this entire rigorous framework just completely falls apart. There's a sentence in the framework that perfectly captures this financial reality. A PSEA action plan without resources is a statement of intent, not a control system. It's so true. There is a huge systemic danger when donor-funded operations expand rapidly but completely forget to include dedicated PSEA budget lines. Teams just kind of assume PSEA can be absorbed into everyone's existing workload. Trust me, it cannot. To actually get these vital resources, the framework gives us 4 concrete steps. First, cost the requirement. Price out the personnel, the training, the data systems, the victim assistance, all of it. Second, use hard evidence connecting those budgets directly to operational risks. Third, blend your funding sources. Mix entity budgets, pooled funds, cost sharing, whatever it takes. And fourth, prioritize long-term sustainability over quick, one-off activities. PSEA isn't some luxury overhead expense. It's a non-negotiable condition for responsible delivery. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative question, something to really gauge your own institutional readiness. Is your PSEA architecture funded, staffed, and fully operational before the next rapid emergency scale-up hits? Because as this new framework makes abundantly clear, you simply cannot improvise a safeguard system after the harm has already been done. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this helped clarify the strict new architecture of the UN's PSEA framework. Catch you next time.